The Bassmaster Tournament Trail is presented by Long John Silver's.
Well, hi, welcome to our show. This is the first in a series, and it will be a series like none you have ever seen before. I'm Tommy Sanders. Fishing fans around the world know this guy right here, Jerry McInnes.
Why do I have more notes than you have?
Maybe you need them.
The reason I'm here is you're lost. You're lost without me.
I have to admit, it is true. Now, fishing fans and college basketball fans know this man, ESPN's Jimmy Dykes.
Tommy, I'll tell you why I'm here. College basketball, the greatest indoor sport, bass fishing, the greatest outdoor sport, and by the end of the season, I want Mr. McInnes' autograph.
Oh,
That's all I want for doing
We
these
can get that for you, and we're ready to get started. I guess, Jerry, with bass fishing bigger and better than ever.
And where are we going to start off at? Right in the middle of smallmouth bass capital. I really believe, absolutely, I really believe the Great Lakes are just tops. And we are on Lake St. Clair. We've had 3 great qualifying days. Man, the guys caught a lot of fish. But you have 300 guys out there fighting it all out, and how can one guy always end up on the top in that particular location?
It's this guy right here, Larry Nixon. 2 big wins over the past 3 years on this lake. Never out of the top 10. He owns Lake St. Clair.
Fish.
Big sucker. That is a horse.
There's what you needed. Good job.
Nice one for Nixon to get us kicked off
You
there.
learn how to catch those in Bee Branch, Arkansas?
Oh, yeah, they're in other places as well. That is just a tease of what we have coming up today from Lake St. Clair. Also, we'll be tracking some very important yardsticks, the race to qualify for the Classic, and Angler of the Year points.
Tommy, any sport, any level, it's critical to get off to a quick start, and that's what our anglers are wanting to do in that chase for the Angler of the Year title, get out of the blocks quickly, and also trying to set themselves up to automatically qualify for that Bassmasters Classic. We have one competitor we know is already in. 2001 Classic champion Kevin Vandam. He gets the automatic berth. Now, there have been occasions in the past where a Classic champion will take the year off from competitive fishing, maybe concentrate on their promotional activities, some speaking engagements, kind of bask in their glory a little bit. We caught up with Kevin Vandam. He tells us his game plan for the upcoming season.
I'm not laying off or anything. I'm fishing for Angler of the Year, just like I do every year. And just because I know that I'm going to get to go to the Classic, that doesn't mean anything to me. It's, each day I'm going to take it as an individual day and try to do the best that I can in every tournament.
I don't think any of us who really know Kevin Vandam ever thought for a second that that guy would take the year off from competitive fishing. And you take a look at how he qualified for last year's Classic, always in that top 25, top 30, except for the last event, probably cost him the Angler of the Year title. And Tommy Sanders, I can tell you this, I was in Venezuela with Kevin Vandam a few months ago catching peacock bass. That is one competitive dude.
He's absolutely relentless.
Yeah.
It's sort of like we are. I'll tell you how relentless and smart we are. We have actually arranged for Kevin Vandam to be in our final 10 here on Lake St. Clair. No, actually, he fished his way in like all these anglers, headed up by Larry Nixon, 50 pounds, 1 ounce. Davie Hide, their former Classic champion. Scott Rook finished second in the Classic last year. Gary Klein of Texas, the veteran. Chip Harrison from Bremen, Indiana, and Peter T. Peter Thoveros from Jacksonville, Florida, a fellow who fishes out on the West Coast a lot. Kataro Kiriyami of New Jersey, Tom Burns, Carbondale, Illinois. There's our Classic champ, Kevin Vandam, rounding out the field of 10, Bill Wilcox of Burleson, Texas.
And you know what I hear all the time? Are these guys really athletes? Well, I'm here to tell you they are. They probably can't run a 100-yard dash, but they have a lot of stamina. They have a lot of hand-eye coordination, and boy, they make good decisions. So I don't want to hear more about it. They are good athletes, and Bee Branch, Arkansas is ready to go.
Yesterday, I couldn't get them to bite early, and then they bit good for about 30 minutes, and they quit again, and I made a change in jig heads and went to a real heavy one, and I guess that triggered more fish into biting or something, and I caught 2 or 3 of my biggest fish in the last 2 hours. So, hopefully I learned something yesterday that'll really help me for today.
Larry Nixon, of course, one of the greatest of all time, but particularly formidable here.
Boy, we have a lot of water to cover. And you know what? Most of the time, as we look at our fishermen out there doing their job, it's not going to be very, very pretty, Tommy, because, it's like fishing on the ocean.
There's one. Acrobat. Woo.
We know there's a lot of ways to catch these smallmouth, Jerry. What are they doing this week?
Boy, they are in shallow water. They're probably out to 10 or 12 feet of water. I know that Gary Klein is catching several of his fish on a Berkeley Frenzy, which is a lipless crankbait. And a lot of guys are throwing that type of lure. A lot of guys are throwing jerk baits, soft jerk baits. Hey, they're all over the place there.
Not a super big one, but by gosh, it's a keeper. It'll start the morning off really good. They're up there in that real shallow water up there feeding on those little tiny minnows. I'll put him in the release side. I was beginning to wonder there. I made about 10 casts without getting a bite. And I was starting to think that maybe I'd made the wrong move, the wrong decision, but there's not as much current here on this point today as there was yesterday because the north wind's kind of backed off a little bit. So,
watching coverage of the Citgo Bassmaster Tour, our first event of the year, Detroit, Michigan, here on Lake St. Clair. This is the fourth and final day, but yesterday on day 3, well, it was this man's day. Steve Klein of Fort Wayne, Indiana. He won the top amateur prize, $35,000. A great 3 days of fishing for him, and a total of 34 pounds and 2 ounces. Can Larry Nixon hang on to his lead coming into today? We'll find out. Stay with us.
The Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail is brought to you by Citgo. And in part by Mercury. And by Triton.
The Citgo Bassmasters Tour. We're out here on Lake St. Clair, first event of the year near Detroit, Michigan. Already fishing from Jacksonville, Florida, Peter Thilveros.
He is already fishing and catching.
He's going.
And we got guys that are still traveling. I tell you what, these guys, well, there's so much water up here. Man, Tommy, you realize that St. Clair itself is like almost 30 miles long, hundreds of square miles. And so everybody's game plan is based on where you going. How long does it take me to get here? Peter T's got a place close to home.
That's the way you start the day out. With one in the 4-pound range.
Take a look now at Davie Hide from Prosperity, South Carolina. You talk about a guy that's got all the skills, plus he knows how to win.
And you know what he's doing? He's like, he's on his way to his good spot. Gary Klein was kind of the same way. You know, they got a couple of little places they want to stop on the way to the big fish hole, and of course these guys always want to see if they can't catch 3 or 4 fish, maybe even a limit before they actually get to the place where they're going to spend the rest of the day. Davie Hide is throwing he's throwing a lipless crankbait. He's throwing a soft jerk, a soft plastic jerk bait. He's also throwing a tube.
We'll take him.
We having fun yet?
Guarantee as long as you guys are catching fish, we are sure having fun. Davie Hide started today about 1.5 pounds back of Larry Nixon. Now, Gary Klein here started 3 pounds back. He's got a little bit more work to do today.
And Davie Hide sitting on a smallmouth pocket. Are we having any fun? Hey, do you know we got 3 guys here that we're covering that did not make the Classic last year. They're trying to get off to a good start. I'll bet Jimmy Dykes, I'm telling you what, that guy knows so much. He'll have that info for us.
Definitely have that update just a little bit later.
I think I'll put him over on the big fish side. And he had a couple bigger ones.
Gary Klein in a nice one. Excitable Gary Klein. He's a good guy.
When he has got confidence, and boy, he had it this morning when he left the ramp. Did you talk to him much?
Oh, yeah.
I talked to him last night, and he thinks he's going to win. And
yeah,
he's in a good position to. He could do it.
We're going to position him and all our other anglers with regard to this map of the lake. How about that? We'll put Gary Klein where we just saw him. They're at the mouth of the Detroit River. Scott Rook fishing in the river. Gary Klein, of course, all week long people ask him, how is it down on Erie? He says, pretty tough. You know, you may not want to go down. He hasn't been to Lake Erie. He doesn't know what it's like down. That's way down here.
He's kind of smart, eh?
He's a smart guy. He's a smart guy.
Hey, let me show you something here, Tommy. We got the St. Clair River coming out of the northeast down into the main portion of the lake, and just above it we have the north channel. We have the middle channel, and a lot of the fishermen fish in the area that we have just illustrated right here. Now, Peter T. and Davie Hide and Chip Harrison are all in that area right there. And as I said, it's a big area, too. We're talking about a big area.
That's a wide miles right there, yeah.
Now, Larry Nixon is right down here on a little sunken island, and he has been fishing there, well, whenever he can get down there. And First few days, we've had some wind coming right out of the north, and it has been howling on occasion. Today, Larry Nixon and everybody, for that matter, got really lucky because that wind turned around from the south. It's not blowing very hard, and everybody could go exactly where they wanted to go.
Nixon benefited from that a lot. You've been saying that you wish somebody had sort of broke ranks and gone down to Lake Erie.
You know, I would think with this many anglers, one of them would have the courage to just drop the plan that got them this far. Maybe their plan is starting to peter out a little bit and go to Lake Erie and maybe get in on some water that hasn't had as much pressure.
Well, I'm starting with a popper. Been able to draw a few big strikes with it every morning. I'm mixing it up with a jerk bait and a spinner bait, and then a couple of Nichols tube baits. The first day I caught them pretty good here on a spinner bait, but they just last few days I kind of got off that spinner bait, and usually I've got a good limit in the boat by about 8 o'clock. There's one fish on.
Strike for Chip Harrison, Bremen, Indiana, a guy who keeps gaining more and more respect with each year on the tour.
And he's got a little experience up on the Great Lakes, but that's not the reason why he's doing well here. I think he's a very versatile fisherman, and man, he just keeps popping up in these finals.
Whether you're experienced or not, you've always got to confront the same thing when you take off every morning. Should I stick with what I've been doing or change to something else?
Sometimes you're better off to just follow your gut instinct. My gut instinct told me that maybe these spots have played out and that I should just go right out and start where I finished yesterday. Then you start thinking, and I started thinking, well, if I can get 2 good bites on these spots, you know, because I've caught so many quality fish off of these areas, you about got to play it out and see what happens.
Well, you know, I believe Larry Nixon's plan is very similar to Chip's, and we've talked a lot about Nixon, but the truth of the matter is there's 3 or 4 guys that can overtake him today, and for the most part, Davie Hide and Gary Klein have already done that. Boy, Nixon, you better hang in there.
He ain't near as little as I thought he was. He ain't a big one, but he's better than a 14-incher.
Looks small at all. Maybe that's the angle. But here's the angle on Larry Nixon. He's catching fish. Other anglers are still running down the river 25 miles from the takeoff to the mouth of the Detroit River.
Boy, Scott Rook is ripping down that river, obviously hoping to find fish when he finally does get to his fishing spot. And what does professional hockey player Pat Verbeek have to do with professional bass fishing? We're going to find out later on in this show.
We having fun yet?
Fish gobbled up. Hit it. Smallmouth. Smallmouth. Bang one. Bang one. I really need to bang one.
On, smallmouth.
Come on, fish, wake up. Time to start.
You can see that the anglers here on the Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail, well, they have a lot of fun out there, but it's also very serious business for them. There's a lot of attention focused each year on qualifying for the Bassmasters Classic, but it just might be even more difficult to win that all-important Angler of the Year title.
Among the anglers, we all feel like it's definitely the hardest, most sought-after, award you can get. It's the hardest to win. You know, the Classics has always been publicized as the biggest, title you can win, but Angler of the Year, there's a lot of, among the anglers, there's more self-gratification in winning it.
Well, Mark Davis knows that satisfied feeling that only comes with winning the Angler of the Year, and here's how he did it last year. He really stayed in a confident rhythm all season long. He started last season consistently staying at the top of the leaderboard, but he really got revved up towards the end of the year, delivering 3 top 10 finishes. Davis is a 3-time Angler of the Year winner and the only competitor to ever win the Angler of the Year and the Bassmasters Classic title in the same year. He accomplished that feat back in 1995. He is a hoss out there on that tournament trail. Beginning this season on Lake St. Clair, Davis didn't fare so well. He didn't make the top 10, but he did kick off the year with a solid start, finishing 15th.
15th, very respectable, especially for Mark Davis. He's in good shape for Angler of the Year, and especially for making the Classic.
Tommy, we may have to go back here. Did he not throw a duck decoy?
It was big enough, wasn't it? My gosh.
Let me go through the rule book here.
He hasn't even fished yet, and he's got his big buoy out there. Here's Scott Rook from Little Rock, Arkansas.
No buoy out for Scott. A duck decoy. Scott is in a school of them, man.
He's broke my line. Unbelievable. Good one, too. Bad spot in my line or something there, didn't I?
Now, whatever it was, he's going to think about that one.
Golly, you know what? Scott only lives about a dozen blocks or so from where I live there in Little Rock, so he may come after me, but I just have to say that's a bad mistake, Tommy. These guys, you know, they check their line every night. Actually, most of them re-spool, but I know Scott is hurting there a little bit.
Oh, yeah, those smallmouth don't school forever, and you have to really make hay when you see them out there going.
And he is in a good school of fish here, and that one that he lost probably was a good one.
Come on, big one. Jump on it. There, just like that. I don't know if you're a big one, but you're a good one. Yeah, he's a pretty big one. Way too soon to be reaching for the net, though. I don't know, maybe he's gonna, nope. It's like they see the net and they go, no, not that. Oh, get in here. Now you can jump all you want. Called him up. I asked him to come, and he did.
You know, one thing I really figured out yesterday that just blowed my mind, I could not get a bite unless I fought the wind and fished, bringing the wind at me, bringing the lure downwind. I tried drift socks and all that stuff, and until I quit doing that and just started fighting it, I didn't catch any fish. Yep. This one here might be a fish. Oh, no, he's not no real big one, but he's a good one. Oh, would you cut it out? Don't you jump on the other side of the boat. Thanks. A little bitty feather.
All right, back over to Davie Hide here. He still hadn't left his first spot, obviously, still on the St. Clair River.
Hey, you know something we take for granted? And that's how well these guys net these fish. And whether it's a smallmouth or a largemouth, either one, they do a darn good job. And that's a pretty tough feat. But these smallmouth, Tommy, you know, man, they are really tough. And to land them all by yourself is quite a chore.
Just got to let him wear down a little bit.
Oh, my goodness.
Come on, darling. Get in there. There you go.
Told you Nixon would have his hands full. Unofficially, that fish gives Davie Hide about 58 pounds in the lead.
That's what we're talking about. Them guys still on the way to Erie, too.
Meanwhile, back at the duck hole here.
There's that decoy.
Or buoy.
Lucky duck.
Or a lucky duck.
Or a lucky duck. Peter Tilveros there. Now, Davie Hide may be a little mistaken about the number of guys going down to Erie. Peter T. already fishing.
Sure like to get number 5 when I leave here and then go to my big fish hole.
One more for Hyde, and we'll get to see his big bass place.
He's holding out on us.
He's holding out on us. Gary Klein may already be at his big bass place, and we put GPS in the boats of all of our contenders. We get the true tracking of their activities all through the day. We're going to look at Gary Klein's activity. Came out of Metro Beach, like all the rest of them, went all the way down here to the mouth of the Detroit River. And not just to the mouth, but to a very specific spot on the mouth of the river there. And you can see his boat position right there off of Pesh Island.
And look at all the shallow numbers here, Tommy. This is a real flat 2 and 3 feet of water. And what makes it really special is the fact that on each side of it, and again, as we look at his real track, you can see that this area and this area, he has spent a lot of time in it. But the thing that makes that whole deal really special is the fact that there's the Detroit River. Here's another channel that splits the island, and so you've got deep water on each side of that real shallow flat. Now,
under the water, we can see.
And we're looking at about a 5-mile square right here. And here's your Pesh Island and your channels. And Gary is throwing all over this flat, fan casting that bait. And what's out there is little piles of rocks, sometimes maybe just one rock. And it is the perfect place because the fish are in that channel, in the deep channel. They would be coming out of there and spend some time up there hiding around one of those rocks trying to ambush them in them.
Well, you spent some time talking to Gary right in the heat of battle, right there on that spot when he was fishing it. We traced your call back to Jimmy's bait shop.
Gary, first thing I want to ask you is a little bit about the technique that you're fishing right now, and you've been fishing for the past 2 days. It's a little bit unusual. I think it's going to surprise some people.
Well, actually what I'm doing is just speed reeling, and I'm fishing a little fire tiger crankbait in shallow water, and I'm just burning it. And that seems to trigger these smallmouth. But usually I need, the cleaner water, and right now I'm just kind of fighting the wind direction is changing. It's coming out of the southeast, and the real clear water now is getting a little bit of a tint to it. And I don't know if they're really wanting to chase or if they just moved out of these areas.
Boy, I can just imagine speed reeling that bait and having a 3 to 5 pound smallmouth stop it.
Oh, it's a gas. It about jerked the rod out of your hands when they get it, and then they jump up in the air about 3 feet.
Describe the area where you're fishing. Describe the things you're looking for.
Well, really what I'm fishing, and you can't see them, is I'm fishing a big flat that's got isolated rock piles. Everything that really all the fish that I've caught have been around isolated rock piles. Little clumps of grass and stuff. And smallmouth like to have a little ambush point that they can lay around. And there's not a lot of rocks on this lake. There's only a few areas that have rocks. And usually when they move into the shallow water, those areas are, definitely the key stuff. So that's all I'm running is the real rocky bottoms.
Also river fishing, Scott Rook of Little Rock, Arkansas. He's a little further down the river, actually. We saw Scott encounter those big schools of smallmouth earlier.
Hey, those maps are cool, aren't they, Tommy? We are exposing these guys.
We're telling it all, I'm afraid, giving away some good stuff.
Scott Rook is a tough angler. Normally likes to fish shallow water, fishes a spinnerbait and shallow running crankbaits a lot. Finished second in the Classic not long ago, so his position here is no fluke.
You can see Scott Rook's position right now versus the other 6 anglers we are covering today. Rook with 53.5 pounds for the moment. Davie Hide has overtaken Larry Nixon. We need to watch that race very carefully today. Remember also, we're not covering Kiriyama, Burns, Vandam, and Wilcox. Now, earlier we said that one of the stars of the NHL was lighting it up this week. We'll have that story for you when we return.
N2's exclusive presentation of the Citgo Bassmasters Tour is brought to you by Kumo, by Lowrance, and by Bass Pro Shops.
We still have a lot of ground to cover here today, but next week the Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail is going to head out west for the Western Open and another smallmouth show on the Columbia River in the Tri-Cities area of southeastern Washington. Have you ever caught or even seen a 6-pound smallmouth? Well, you won't want to miss next week's show. We're expecting 4-pound, 5-pound, even 6-pound smallies to be caught. Now, we just saw Davie Hide catch a 3-pound smallmouth, securing his place at the top of our leaderboard. Hyde is one of 3 competitors in our top 5 today who did not qualify for the Bassmasters Classic last year. The others are Gary Klein and Larry Nixon. Nixon has competed in an impressive 22 Classics throughout his career. Even with a veteran like Nixon, it's never a layup to make that Classic.
I don't care who you are. If you've been doing something 25 years, every now and then you drop your concentration and you don't catch fish where you should.
Well, that's Larry Nixon, always telling it like it is. And concentration, of course, is a huge part of any professional sport. Pro hockey player Pat Verbeek had his concentration and his fishing skills tested this week in the amateur division of this tournament.
You know, there's been some tournaments where, you know, I've won, you know, local Tuesday night deals, you know, where you go out and have a little fun and stuff. It's a scary thought, but I take more pride in winning that money than sometimes my own paycheck. I think you'll measure anyway. You're too small. Brian Marchman's the guy who really got, you know, a former teammate of mine, really got me into bass fishing when we lived in Connecticut, and that's where I got really hooked on it. And then I started fishing. When I moved to Texas, I got to fish in tournaments and stuff like that, and that just sank the hook in even further. So.
Assoc and into the Carolina net. I'll tell you, the guys did a lot of work on this. Watch number 22 in front, Muller. He works across, he goes off.
Down in Texas in the springtime, the fishing's awesome, and even in the fall time, you know, they got some renowned lakes that, you know, are, you know, known for catching huge bass. You know, when people say, well, what are you going to do? I'm going fishing today. But when you fish at this level, it's a grind. I get to fish even during the course of the season from time to time. We have days off, and it really lets you get away from, you know, your daily grind of, you know, whether it's work or, you know, for most people it's work. For me, it's, you know, having fun.
Hold some of them up, folks. Pat Verbeek's going to show us some bass.
This week's Tour Life has been brought to you by Citgo.
Pat was a Red Wing then, and Dallas Star now. He finished 37th last week. And how about this race? And I'll bet Harrison is enjoying his position. I know he loves this career.
I think we do have it made. You know, it is a lot of work. It's tough. It's early hours. It's late hours. It's on the road. A lot of travel.
I don't think he's a keeper.
I mean, who wouldn't want to do it if you had the opportunity to do it? That's the way I feel about it. I'm living a dream doing it. I can't see myself doing anything else. I wanted to do this since I was 17 years old. I worked with my father in foam rubber fabrication for a lot of years, and my dad knew I was never going to be there, so we decided let's go bass fishing, and he made it available for me early in my career, and since then it's kind of been okay, you know. And it's a tough job, it's tough to do, but I can't see myself doing anything else. There's a good one. Oh! Lord have mercy, come on. Yes! That one will work.
Oh, there's 2 or 3 with him. There's 2 or 3 more, just this same size with him. He's not a monster, but he's a keeper, and that gives me 5.
Oh, there we go. That's the one. Oh, what is it? Oh, my God. Oh, he came off. Oh, dadgummit. Hate it when that happens. It's the only one that hadn't gotten it good. Come on, come on. There's more down there.
Peter T. from Jacksonville, Florida, who's won a lot of money up here on St. Clair. Gary Klein has won money just about everywhere.
I tell you what, Peter T's almost as bad as Larry Nixon.
He is.
About
He
scored
loves
on
this place.
And you're right about Gary Klein. Although Gary Klein's lagging a little bit today, this spot was running a little hotter the past few days than it is now. It seems like his fish are just a little bit on the small side today.
Number 5.
That's 5 fish for Gary Klein, but look at our leader now with that 5th fish. Scott Rook takes the lead with 59 pounds. Right behind him, Davie Hide, 58.5 pounds. Now, Larry Nixon, check this out, 56 pounds, but only 3 fish, 2 more good catches, and he's right in the lead. And here's Chip Harrison coming up on him right now. He's 1 fish to a limit. 1 more good one could put him in the lead.
And Chip Harrison is now fishing with a, well, he's been fishing with a crankbait for quite a little while. He's now fishing with a Norman middle limb, a chartreuse bait. I mentioned earlier Gary Klein was fishing with a lipless crankbait. Chip's trying to get down there in 6, 8, maybe even 10 feet of water, and you would think he was out in the flats, but he is fishing the grass. A lot of these guys are fishing grass. Tommy, grass is very, very important to all the anglers today, not just Chip.
Yes. That's bass fishing, boys.
Well, I don't know everything there is to know about pro bass fishing, but anytime you're culling and it's about lunchtime, you're in pretty good shape. You're not altogether unhappy.
Who was breathing heavy? Was that you, Tommy?
That was me. I was just adding a few. No, that was Chip, actually,
Chip was,
for your information.
He was huffing and puffing, but he's pretty excited. And like you say, he is culling, and that's a good sign.
It's a good place to be. We're putting GPSs in all the boats of our contenders today. We get a good, accurate track of what they've been doing. Let's run over Chip's path for today. Really kind of neat. He took out from the beach there, went right straight across. This is about a 10-minute ride, right across the lake right there, up the middle channel of the St. Clair River. Spent a little time right there fishing.
And throwing topwater baits. And gosh, I hate to say it, but he was fishing for small fish, possibly. He stopped doing that. Actually, he caught a couple and then stopped doing it. Now here his track comes back out. Right back down the same path. And he is very close to the launch area. Now that's where he's at right now, and that's where he's going to spend the rest of the way. You know, as you can see, Tommy, right over here.
Right there's Metro Beach.
There's Metro Beach.
Absolutely.
So,
in comparison to what we were looking at before underwater with Gary Klein, this looks very flat. It looks like a parking lot. There's not a lot going on there.
well, the big difference here is, though, now we've probably got 10 foot of water there.
Deeper.
Gary Klein only had 2 and 3 feet of water. And no, there's no rocks there. There's no contour there. But, man, there's big patches of grass. And Chip is trying to find those with his crankbait. As a matter of fact, every now and then you could see him reel his bait in and it had grass on it. And that's his contour, the grass.
Oh, God. 2 or 3 of them.
Davie Hide kind of in a state of excitement here. I think he's found his big fish place, Jerry.
Finally moved over to this big fish
Made his
hole.
move.
And you know what? Even Davey said this. A lot of guys, a lot of fishermen go to the lake and they get into trying to catch 100 fish a day when all you need is 5 strikes. And if you can get in areas where maybe you're not getting as many strikes as the next guy, don't panic, because this could be the place where you're going to catch bigger fish. And this is what Davey is doing right now. He has found the place where at least he thinks he will not get as many strikes, but they're going to be a lot bigger.
Davie Hide just a shade behind Scott Rook at this point, but he acts like this is a big one.
Number 5, baby.
Welcome back. You're watching the first event of the year on the Citgo Bassmaster Tour. Lake St. Clair, Detroit, Michigan, big smallmouth are what's going on here, and that is your leader in action, Davie Hide.
And remember when I was talking to you a little bit earlier about the controversy that comes up every now and then as to whether or not these guys are athletes? I'd like for someone to get out on the front end of that boat and operate that trolling motor in the wind, fish over to the left, have everything together, and actually feel a fish hit. Now, that's an athlete.
That's why he's getting his picture taken right here. That one will probably wind up on the front of the magazine if he keeps going like he's going right now.
But we beat the magazine.
We beat the magazine. We got him right here. If we want to get inside the mind of the leader, we got him right here. Folks, here is Davie Hide, 97 Angler of the Year, 99 Classic champion, also an FLW Tour Championship in there. You've had a tremendous career so far. Last year was probably not up to your standards. It would be fine with a lot of people, but not up to your standards. But the good news is we're in the start of a brand new year, and you're doing so well.
It's great to get off to a good start.
Absolutely.
Earlier, Sanders was accusing you of loafing last year, and I said, that's not right now, Tommy, because, you know, athletes just hit these little stretches where things go wrong, and from the outside looking in, you do think, well, they're not concentrating, they're not trying, when possibly it's just the opposite of that.
You start not doing very well, and you start trying a little too hard, and you compound the problems, and the snowball just gets bigger and bigger. And I had an off season to think about it and get ready for this year, and like I say, it's great to get off to a great start.
Boy, you got one going right now.
Got a lot of people watching you as well, including us. You remember we put that GPS in your boat the very first start of the day there, and we're going to track you all over the lake on this final championship day. Of course, you started over at Metro Beach Park, went all the way up the middle channel of the St. Clair River, up to this spot right here, and on the Canadian side, as a matter of fact.
Tell us about that spot.
Well, I found it a few years ago in another event up there, but I didn't realize how good it was until I threw a Gambler tube bait in there. But it's obviously, I'm learning something now looking at it here. I can see better than what I actually could see from the water, but it's a rock there.
I'm thinking you're learning something right now. It's hard to see, I realize, but you can definitely see that little ledge right there. And I think it is a ledge, probably not a rock, just some kind of a ledge. We're going to take a look at it from a different angle right here. Davey, right there. And we're talking about possibly a 3-mile stretch right here and one little spot right here. Now, are you telling me you could fish up and down through there and possibly not anything?
You couldn't get a bite. And, you know, you're probably right. At least 3 miles you have there in a square, and you would not get a bite other than on that one particular spot. And I finally, you know, figured that out and was able to present a different bait there other than just a spinner bait. And I could catch 4 or 5 fish each morning there, and it really gave me a lot of confidence going to my other spot that I was catching a few big fish, but not nearly as quick as that.
And that kind of answers our question as to why don't you go, if you know where some big fish are, why don't you go right to them? You want a few fish on the Cullen side of that live well.
You do, because you don't normally find big fish spots that you can catch 5 in 5 casts. And that particular spot, they were keepers, and I could catch 5 fish in almost 5 casts, 5 to 7 casts, and it just gives you great confidence. You know, knowing you've got 8 hours left to fish in the tournament, you've got 5 keepers, you're not going to bomb out for the day, put your head down, fish for big fish, use big fish baits.
Take us down to the big fish place right now. Take us all the way from where you were down there.
We are really going to expose you now, Davey. You describe, I'll point, you describe.
Well, I ran back out the channel and out into the lake, and you had to tuck right in behind that bar right there that you're exposing. And I was able to figure out how to get in behind that bar. That's extremely shallow there. It's like 1 to 2 feet. And I was able to find out how to get behind that bar when I was out on the lake in practice. And the wind was blowing really hard, and actually looked like a beach through there. That bar was exposed, just like a sandy beach.
And, you know, I think you heard me say earlier that some of the guys asked me, how did he get back in there? I saw him fishing there, and I couldn't get back in there. Well, I've illustrated the ridge, and here you are. You come through this little cut, I guess. And there's the big fish area.
A little sunken hump in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little sunken hump.
That's right. That's all you're looking for right there. Why were the big fish in there?
There was, that bar actually protected the water back in there and kept it a little cleaner, and there was a lot of bait. And anytime on Lake St. Clair you get around a lot of bait, there's going to be big smallmouth.
Well, now then, we're going to show something else right here. A gambler, you call it.
Gambler jumping shad.
All right.
It was my secret until
I didn't want
you exposed
he exposed it himself.
He did it to himself. All right.
This is about a nothing-looking bait as I can think of. It's just a piece of plastic.
It looks like nothing out of the pack, but when you put it in the water and see the incredible action that bait has, and, you know, smallmouth, you can trigger a reaction from them. Even when they're not really actively feeding, you can get a bait like that, it just gets them excited, and they'll just attack.
And does smallmouth get more excited than a largemouth? It seems like it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. We know the place, everything about it. We know the bait now. Let's take a look at Davie Hide's technique and show us what you're doing here, Davey.
Well, it's a little cadence that you have to kind of figure out what the fish want, and you know, typically I want to work a bait in that clear water for smallmouth faster than you would for largemouth, and I just play around. There's no one set cadence, but I do a lot of different things with the bait until you start getting some bites, and then you just try to repeat that cadence.
And this is our fish eye view right here. This little something extra we have for the bass fishing fans out there. I think you'll learn a lot watching this little guy underwater.
I bet you didn't realize the line was, that slack line did what it does there.
Not that much. I really didn't. You know, when you jerk the bait, it comes towards you and creates a little bit of slack, and that's usually when you'll get the bite, and that's good so the fish doesn't feel the pressure, but it looks like there's probably a foot of slack line there.
And particularly a school of smallmouth could not stand that, could they?
Oh, absolutely not. When they compete against one another, they really go crazy.
And aren't you doing this with your rod tip more than anything else?
You're actually working your wrist and the rod tip. You know, it takes a lot of hand-eye coordination.
Golly, bum, he's strong.
He might help. Not sure. I don't have him hooked very good, I know that.
Chip Harrison, if he could just land a good fish, he could challenge for the lead. It hasn't happened for him yet.
Hold on.
Peter Thilveros caught more fish early than any other angler, just couldn't find the big fish today. He's only had one spot where he can catch him, and it hasn't paid off for him. And Scott Rook will cull with this fish. It will give him 61 pounds and enough to challenge for the lead with a little time left to fish.
Davey, anglers have some tough decisions to make out there, even before the tournament begins, right?
You really do. You know, in practice, your 3 official practice days, you have to decide where you're going to spend the whole event. And, you know, the place that I ended up winning the tournament, I caught a few good quality-sized fish. On a lake like St. Clair, you need 5 quality fish. 5 keepers won't do you much good. And it was a place that had quality fish in it, and there was bait there, and I expected more smallmouth to move in there.
And other anglers got real close yet and didn't get right on it.
Yeah, and talk about those other anglers. Talk about some of the mistakes they may have made.
There really wasn't many people on that side of the lake, but one is a coincidence, Clark Winland, that I room with, and this was totally by coincidence. He was the only angler that was in sight that I could identify. And he had found the same group of fish I had, and just hadn't moved over into the area I was in. And then once the event started, he respected my little area and wouldn't move over into it because he's so courteous. And he was just right there, right at the edge, and he caught enough fish to have a good tournament, but maybe in practice he just didn't go over just that little bit, and just you can be so close, but just not
and
quite
I guess a lot of, especially middle of the pack anglers, might find something and or come across something and they really don't know what they found.
Absolutely. You know, when you catch 4-pound smallmouth on Lake St. Clair like that, there's a lot of bait around, and you know, there's a lot of different situations that you feel real good about things. You know, if you catch one out in the middle of the lake and you don't get another bite, there's not any bait there, then you have to realize that maybe that was just a fluke. Yeah. But when you catch a big fish or two, there's a lot of bait around, it's the right kind of cover, and you see those things, you need to spend a lot of time there.
We need to get back out to the lake right now. Time is running out. Scott Rook out there with one fish on. The weigh-in is just right around the corner, and he's taking everything he's getting at this point.
And Davey, did you see that boat go by him? That's a pretty common deal, isn't it?
100 miles an hour, it looked like.
They don't give you a lot of leeway out there on that lake, that's for sure.
Ooh, don't do that. Come here.
Not a bad one for Scott Rook, but not big enough to cull, so he's still waiting on his chance to take over the lead.
At least by fishing halfway close like I am, I get to optimize my time. Them guys that went to Lake Erie are done now. Whatever they've got, that's what they've got. Which they probably got their weight, because it didn't sound like it was taking them very long to catch them once they, oh, there we go. Oh, great big one. Oh my God. Oh Lord, look out. Let me catch one big one. Oh! Oh, yes! 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 Thank you, Lord. Woo! Woo! Yes!
What do you think?
I think that brightens my spirits immensely right there. I finally caught one of them big devils I got hooked. Finally.
All right, Davie Hide, maybe last fish of the day here. What are you fishing with here?
I'm actually using a top water bait there. That's the only fish I caught that day on top water, but that fish, it was just awesome. As the bait was getting closer to the boat, the fish ran up to the bait and he turned and went away. And then he came back and he went away, and then finally the third time he said, "Heck, quit it, I'm gonna crush it." And I caught him. It was a really nice fish.
You can tell by the smile on your face it was a pretty good show right before that guy took that one.
In smallmouth, they're such subtle fish anyhow.
Yes, they are. You barely feel them on there.
You know, it's a great feeling at that point, knowing that you got a chance to win the tournament. That's like a 3-pound, 4-ounce fish there, and I didn't even put it in live well.
Well, I take my chances with one more 4-pounder. Shake Larry's hand if he beats me with it, or whoever, not just Larry.
Davie Hide could definitely be doing some handshaking today, but in what capacity? He could be the winner. He's definitely got a shot at it the weigh-in when we come back.
The Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail is brought to you by Citgo. And in part by Long John Silver's. By Flowmaster. And by Yamaha.
It's weigh-in time at the Bassmaster Tour on Lake St. Clair. Peter Thilveros today kept close to the launch, fished hard, fished long, only managed 5th place with 57 pounds and 13 ounces. Gary Klein of Weatherford, Texas, former Angler of the Year on the Bass Angler Sportsman Society Tour, finished 4th with 58.11. Scott Rook of Little Rock, Arkansas, a few mistakes. He had his chances today and still fished very well. 3rd place, 61.14. Chip Harrison from Bremen, Indiana, continues to do better and better in the world of professional tournament fishing. A 2nd today on St. Clair, 62 pounds, 8 ounces. And your winner, Davie Hide. Boy, he got to his big bass hole and sacked him up. He's your winner, 68 pounds, 1 ounce for the man from Prosperity, South Carolina.
Today it wasn't slow. I mean, I had 16 pounds before I could get going good this morning. It was unreal, but and then it's hard to better. You know, there's so many 3-pound smallmouth here that you almost take them for granted. And oh, another 3-pounder, another 3-pounder. When you get up around that 19, 20-pound bag here, it's been hard for me to try to better that.
How big a smallmouth bass does it take to make Chip Harrison go just about nuts? Well, the answer is a 4 or 5 pounder. Chip Harrison was today's catch.
Today's flashback has been brought to you by Long John Silver's.
Let's take a quick look at today's full scoreboard. Larry Nixon, as it turns out, wound up tied for 6th place with Kevin Vandam. 8th place, Tom Burns of Illinois, Kataro Kiriyama in 9th, and Bill Wilcox rounding out the field of 10. A special thanks today for Davie Hide, the champ, for coming into the studio and adding so much expertise.
Next week, we head west for the Western Open on the Columbia River. Expect to see some smallmouth hogs in the net next week in the great state of Washington.
This has been a presentation of